Good evening. Welcome to World News. I am Wisdom Onizi. First, the headlines. Nigerian government promises to support Maiduguri flood victims. UN says escalating violence in Sudan is of deep concern. 95,000 Japanese over 100 years, says government. And on sport, Scotland agrees to host Commonwealth Games in 2026. Now the news in details. Nigerian President Bola Tinubu says the federal government will support the people of Borno State amidst the floods that have ravaged part of the state. The president made this promise on Monday when he visited the state to sympathize with the flood victims and the state government. Massive losses caused by the flooding. The floods have so placed about a movement of individuals to serve as members of Anambra State Civil Service Commission. Soludo said the move is part of his administration's ongoing commitment to enhancing the efficiency and effectiveness of the state civil service system. This was disclosed in a press statement issued by the governor's press secretary, Christian Aburume, on Tuesday. We also have you know that as the new factional national chairman of the Labour Party. In two separate interviews, the national secretary of the party, Umar Farouk, and the deputy president of the Nigeria Labour Congress Political Commission, Theophilus Ndobuaku, disowned the factional leader, that is, rightful leader. The factional chairman state high court, which he claimed had been ignored. Welcome back. News from other parts of Africa. After more than a year of fighting between the army and the paramilitary rapid support forces, the people of Sudan remain trapped in a cycle of displacement, lack of aid, and increasingly hunger. Stephen Dujarric, spokesperson for the United Nations Secretary General, on Monday said the escalating violence, particularly in North Darfur capital El Fasher, is of deep concern. He said the resident and humanitarian coordinator for Sudan, Clementine Nkwata Salami, is calling on all parties to the conflict to refrain from targeting the city and to protect civilians. This comes following reports of large-scale fighting there late last week. Initial reports indicate that healthcare facilities and displacement camps were impacted. The UN says thousands have died in the war, which has forced some 8 million people to flee their homes to safer areas in Sudan or to neighboring countries. Now we move to other parts of the world. After this break, stay with us. Welcome back. Now, news from other parts of the world. Germany has begun random checks at its border with 5 Western European nations, expanding a system of control already in place at its 4 other borders. The police control began at the borders with France, the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, and Denmark on Monday morning and are due to continue for 6 months. The coalition government is under increasing pressure over immigration following recent deadly knife attacks in which the suspects were asylum seekers. In August, the Islamic State group claimed responsibility for a knife attack in the western city of Solingen, in which 3 people were killed. Germany has also seen a rise in support for the opposition far-right and conservatives, pushing immigration and security concerns higher on the political agenda. However, experts have questioned the long-term effectiveness of the measure. Away from that, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has accused the U.S. of impeding UN Security Council's resolution on Gaza ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas. After speaking with the Egyptian counterpart on Monday, Lavrov said the Russians welcome any step to stop the bloodshed, alleging that the U.S. does not want to pass any decision that would lead to this. Lavrov described the U.S.-sponsored resolution endorsing a ceasefire plan as an empty piece of paper, adding that Russians obtained from the vote on the resolution. No promises of the United States were fulfilled, he added. 1 week trance in November resulted in scores of hostages held by the Hamas being released, but since then, attempts to secure an agreement have repeatedly stalled, with Israel and Hamas accusing one another of making new and unreasonable demands. Hamas is pushing for a complete withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza, but Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stood firm in his stance that troops must remain on the Philadelphia corridor in the Gaza-Egypt border. We also have you know that the number of people in Japan aged 100 or older has hit a record high of more than 95,000, almost 90% of them women, government data showed on Tuesday. The figure further highlights the slow-burning demography crisis gripping the world's fourth biggest economy as its population ages and shrinks. As of September 1st, Japan had 95,119 containerids, up 2,990 year-on-year, with 83,958 of them women and 11,161 men, and Health Ministry said in a statement. On a separate, government data shows that the number of over 65s has hit a record high of 36.25 million, accounting for 29.3% of Japan's population. The proportion puts Japan at the top of a list of 200 countries and regions with a population of over 100,000 people. The Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communication disclosed this. Up next is business. Stay with us. Welcome back now to business news. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission has mandated electricity distribution companies to procure a minimum of 398 megawatts of embedded generation to enhance the reliability of power supply across the country. Embedded generation, also known as distributed generation or distributed energy resources, refers to electricity generation or storage plants connected to a distribution network rather than the transmission network or the national electricity grid. The NERC directive is contained in the September 2024 supplementary order to the multi-year tariff order 2024, which applies to the 11 discos in Nigeria. Under the order, each disco is required to secure 10% of its 2024 load allocation from embedded generation sources. This measure is expected to address supply issues and improve electricity delivery to consumers. Still on business news, despite steady rise in commodity prices across the country, the National Bureau of Statistics (NBS) has said the headline inflation rate further eased to 32.15% in August 2024, relative to the July 2024 headline inflation rate of 33.40%. The August 2024 headline inflation rate showed a decrease of 1.25 percentage point when compared to the July 2024 headline inflation rate at a time the country grapples with high cost of food items. Fluctuations in exchange rate and shortage to the food supply chain occasioned by insecurity. However, On a year-on-year basis, the headline inflation rate was 6.35% point higher compared to the rate recorded in August 2023, that is 25.80%. This shows that the head inflation rate year-on-year basis increased in August 2024 when compared to the same month in the preceding year, that is August 2023. The Statistics Bureau said in a report released on Monday. According to the MBS, on the month-on-month basis, the headline inflation rate in August 2024 was 2.22%, which was 0.06% lower than the rate recorded in August 2024, which is 2.28%. This means that in August 2024, the rate of increase in the average price level is lower than the rate of increase in the average price level in July. MBS said, making a sense of the current high cost of living in Nigeria, driven by over 354% increase in gasoline. Away from that, U.S. retail sales unexpectedly rose in August, suggesting that the economy remained on a solid footing through much of the third quarter. Retail sales increased 0.1% last month after an upwardly reversed 1.1% surge in July. The Commerce Department's Census Bureau said on Tuesday. Economists has forecast retail sales, which are mostly goods and are not adjusted for inflation, falling 0.2% after a previously reported 1.0% jump in July. Estimates range from a 0.6% decline to a 0.6% gain. The report was published as the Federal Reserve officials prepared to gather for a two-day policy meeting. Most economists expect the U.S. Central Bank to cut interest rate by 25 basis points on Wednesday, arguing that the economy is not in distress to warrant the half percentage point reduction being anticipated by financial markets. The unemployment rate fell to 4.2% in August, after 4 straight monthly increases pushed it to near a 3-year high of 4.3% in July. The jobless rate has been largely driven by increased labor supply from immigration, which is now slowing. Still to come is sport. Please stay with us.
This is Hillstv. Quality broadcasting is what we'll bring to you. Now we be this
Hillstv, Poker.
Welcome back now to Sport News. Glasgow is to host the 2026 Commonwealth Games after a deal was backed by the Scottish Government. A scaled-down version of the event featuring fewer sport and athletes will return to the city 12 years after it last hosted the Games. The Australian state of Victoria was originally chosen to stage the multi-sport event but withdrew as host due to rising costs. Australian authorities have promised a multi-million-pound investment to help finalize the deal. Health and Sport Minister Neil Grail had talks with Commonwealth Games Australia yesterday to discuss funding and receive the assurance the Scottish Government were looking for. It has written to the Commonwealth Games Federation to officially back a stripped-back event which will see 10 sports take place across 4 venues in the city, with athletics held at Scotland Stadium and swimming taking place at Tollcross. Still on sport news, Emma Raducanu and a hard-fought win in a tough match against Peyton Stern in the first round of the Korean Open in Seoul. The Briton, who is number 17 in the world, was playing her first match since her first round US Open exit and emerged a 6-6, that is 7-4, 7-6, 7-5 victor against her 48th ranked American opponent after 2 hours and 43 minutes. Raducanu started strongly by taking turns in the opening game and, despite losing the next game on her serve, again broke her opponent to lead 2-1. It was a sign of things to come as there were 8 breaks of serve in a fluctuating first set, which Raducanu eventually won on a tick break after 74 minutes. Both players served break point in the second set before Raducanu took one to lead 5-3. Away from that, let's go on to cricket, where we have that Ireland completed their records chase in women's T20 internationals to secure a thrilling 5-wicket victory over England in Dublin. Orna Pendergast top score with a sublime 80 from 51 deliveries as Ireland reached their target of 170 with just 1 ball to spare. It is Ireland's first T20 victory over England in their 4th meeting and means the 2 matches series in drawn 1-1. A partnership worth 79 between Prendergast and captain Gabby Lewis set the platform after opener Amy Hunter fell for one off the 4th ball of the innings. Lewis was eventually dismissed for an entertaining 38 from 35, but Leopold hit a ball 27 to put Ireland within sight of victory. And that's sport news and world news. We move to the rest of the news after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now the rest of the news. Officials in Texas on Monday designated a Venezuelan gang called the Tren del Aragua as a foreign terrorist group and endorsed Donald Trump's claim that many migrants crossing into the United States were released from prisons in Latin America. Authorities said the Tren del Aragua is an international criminal organization that operates in several Latin American countries and engages in extortion, homicide, drug trafficking, and smuggling of people because of a political and economic crisis in Venezuela. Many people from the country are allowed to enter the United States and apply for asylum, but Texas top border official Mike Banks argued that Venezuela has released prisoners with one condition: they leave Venezuela and don't come back. He said the administration of President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris is encouraging such people to come into the United States with what Banks called an open border policy. And that's what news. But before we go, here are the headlines again. We told you that Nigerian government promises to support Maiduguri flood victims. And we also brought to you that UN says escalating violence in Sudan is of deep concern. We told you that 95,000 Japanese over 100 years, says the government. And on sport, we brought to you that Scotland agrees to host Commonwealth Games in 2026. Remember to visit us on Facebook at Hillstv Abuja, Instagram at Hillstv, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at Hillstv. I am Wisdom Onisi. Thanks for watching.